Welcome back to the Mind Body Business Podcast. I am your host, Jane Belante. I am super excited to be here for Motivation Monday today. And today I want to talk to you about something that I know many of us do on a day-to-day basis. It's so conditioned into us. And this is bracing for impact. And we don't even understand why. We're always expecting the bomb to drop, right? And we have a hard time maintaining a state of joy. So if this sounds like you, stick with me here and let's get into it. Welcome to the Mind Body Business Podcast. I'm your host, Jane Belante. And this show is about what happens when you stop separating your life, your work, and your well-being, and start leading all of it from truth. Each episode will explore the connection between your thoughts, your body, and your business, so you can create a life and success that actually feels good. Let's get started. So I want to first talk about the law of expectancy with you today. And the law of expectancy is really simple and it's very practical. So what it actually is and what it actually does is it describes the way expectation organizes your perception, your behavior, and the outcomes that you're expecting to happen. And this is done really, really, really subconsciously. Okay. So what you expect shapes what you notice around you, how you interpret what is happening in your life, and it also shapes the choices you make. And most of the time, this is super subconscious. We don't even realize we're making these choices. So over time, choices stack and the results begin to look predictable, even though you're the one that is like the author of this outcome. So let's talk about this a little bit further. And again, this is all done on a subconscious level. So the reason I'm bringing this to you today is so that you can become aware. When we expect difficulty or disappointment, our mind produces that outcome. And it's crazy, but like we live in this interpretation of expecting to be like hit or, excuse me, or like I said in the beginning, like bracing for impact, right? And this is not about positive thinking because we can think as positive as we want to think in our conceptual brain, right? In our prefrontal cortex, but that is not what is running the show. And, we can repeat affirmations again and again and again in our prefrontal cortex, but if our subconscious brain doesn't believe that, if it's expecting a negative outcome all the time, we are going to get a negative outcome. We're going to keep repeating the past. And this is just, the programming that is running in our brain. And if you heard me last week, and you may have heard this from other people as well, the amount of thoughts that we have every single day, it's like 60 to 70,000 thoughts every single day. Okay, Pam. And 95% of those thoughts are the same thoughts that we had yesterday. So the law of expectancy is what you expect, you get. And if 95% of our thoughts are the same thoughts that we had in the past, We are expecting the past, which makes our future predictable. So that's why expectancy is so powerful. It sets our internal conditions and then it makes outcomes far more likely. And this is why expectancy cannot be changed through affirmations alone. Excuse me. Because our nervous system and our subconscious mind, which is running the show, they're already calibrated to past evidence. So we are always bracing for impact because that is what we are conditioned to. Look at our world right now. It's literally insane. We live in an insane world right now. But our behaviors dictate how much of that we take in. So yes, conditioning comes from, how you grew up, what your caretakers told you, the experiences that you've had in your life. So for example, because of my heart valve being blocked, 99% blocked, anytime something happens in my body, I am immediately expecting for like the worst thing to happen. That's conditioning, right? That's an internal condition because my heart valve being blocked was a spontaneous thing. I had no, I didn't have high blood pressure. I didn't have any reason for that to happen. I didn't expect that to happen, but now I do. Now I expect the worst because it was super scary, right? So I've conditioned myself that anytime something's going on in my body, that it's going to be the worst thing possible. That's conditioning. Okay, so I am changing my expectancy. And this is something that I do all the time, and we're going to get to that in a little bit, but does that make sense? So I can say all the affirmations that I want in my prefrontal cortex. The one that is only the part of the brain that is only responsible for 5% of your thoughts. So I can go, I am perfect health. Nothing is wrong with me. I am, my body is healthy. I can say that all I want in, my thinking brain, but the subconscious brain is conditioned to expect the worst. So the nervous system and the subconscious brain are calibrated to the past evidence. And over time, your internal prediction adjusts and then we keep getting evidence as to why what we're expecting is what we get. Right? So like I had a stomach issue last year and I had to get my gallbladder out. Right? So like I immediately expected the worst and I got the worst. So the law of expectancy is what you expect you get. Does this make sense? Connie and Angela are here. Welcome. So because we're conditioned to brace for the worst, the law of expectancy seems like it's protecting us. And bracing for impact is an expectancy. It's the body and the mind preparing for interruption, for loss, for collapse. And this makes it really, really, really hard to be joyful or to become joyful as a state of being. Does that make sense? Like joy just comes in little baby moments. And then we're edging it out because the law of expectancy tells us to expect the worst. So, like, we feel uneasy more often than we feel amazing. And that becomes our lived experience. And when we think about our thoughts creating the biology in our body, this is what our body is accustomed to. And this is what it thinks is normal. And this is what the subconscious brain thinks is safe, even though we're feeling anxiety and stress and dis-ease more often than we're feeling joy. And we don't like that, right? So when joy comes in, we have these moments of like, we feel really good in our body. And then our body becomes the body brain, which is explained thoroughly by Dr. Joe Dispenza. But what he says is that the body actually takes over the brain and it goes, this isn't us. This is not us, right? We have 30,000 or 30,000, 30 trillion, something like that, cells in our body. And each one of those cells is a complete replica of us. And those cells go, joy, this isn't us. And it signals the brain to give you a thought that puts you back in the state of anxiety, dis-ease, bracing for impact. And so that's why the law of expectancy keeps you in that same state. And it doesn't mean that we're pessimistic. It doesn't mean that we're avoiding being joyful. It's just our way of being. It's like the habitual state that we're in. So over time, we just keep repeating the same thing over and over and over. We don't allow anything new in because we are expecting impact. We are expecting something bad to happen. And when we live in this state of bracing for a really long time, joy does start to feel unsafe. And it's hard for us to let our guard down. We're so afraid of what other people think of us. We're so afraid to like just let loose. And then like we allow ourselves to enjoy, for fleeting moments. And then we're right back into the bracing. And one of the things that keeps us in this is listening to the news all the time and scrolling on social media all the time. Because it reinforces negativity. So unless you block absolutely everything and everyone who is bringing up, negative things that keep you in this state, social media, it's going to keep you expecting. It's going to keep you bracing. It's going to keep you seeing what the president is doing. It's going to keep you seeing what ICE is doing. It's going to keep you seeing, what the economy might look like. And I'm not saying like be like, uninformed. I'm just saying take yourself out of that spinning cycle all the time. If we keep reinforcing what we expect, we're going to keep getting what we expect. Does this make sense? So, conditioning, some of it we can't help. Before we are like the age of 8, our brain is not developed enough to reason. And so the things that were told to us before we were the age of 8 by teachers, by, your parents, your caregivers, whoever, the things that were told to us before we were the age of 8, we can't reason to go, that's not true at that age. So we just absorb it like a sponge. So the reason why I'm talking about this today is so that you can become aware of what it is that you're expecting. And you can become aware of when it happened. So, when I was 6, I went shopping with my grandmother and her sister brought her grandkids. And I know I've said this story before, but it's so pertinent to understand. She bought my grandmother's sister bought her grandkids all like unicorns and cotton candy and just like all this fun stuff. And my grandma didn't buy me anything. So what that meant to me was that I wasn't good enough. And so that stayed with me forever. It was conditioned into me right then and there, and I was not aware of it until a few years ago. So it's learned behavior, and what I expected, from the age of 6 until the age of, 52 is that I'm not good enough. And so I expect things to occur in my life that prove that I'm not good enough. That's the law of expectancy. What you expect, you get. So, how do we change this? And expectancy really and truly changes the same way any habit changes, right? Because what you expect is what you get, and what you expect is conditioned, and conditioning is habitual. So, if the expectation is, I need to brace for impact because something bad is going to happen, that expectation will stay in place because it keeps getting rehearsed. Even when nothing bad happens. So that's when we start making up stories in our brain. That's when we start to begin to predict the future. And we predict the future based on the past. So you know what I'm talking about, right? Tell me if you do. We make up stories in our brain that something bad is going to happen. So when my daughter, when she was in college, if she wouldn't text me back, I immediately thought she was dead. Right? Bracing for impact. Even when nothing bad was happening. I'm sure she was doing dumb crap, right? But I made up stories. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you sit and make up stories about conversations that you haven't even had yet? About events going wrong? And that rehearsal is the reinforcement of the expectancy. Who is here with me live? Does this make sense to you? So, change can actually happen when we reinforce the good feelings in our body. Yes, right? So when we stop preparing for impact and we interrupt the expectancy pattern, we can begin to expect more of what we want. So we've rehearsed those, things in our brain that predict a negative future. so many times, over and over, again and again, right? We have rehearsed those things so many times. So we can rehearse something to go amazing. And the more we rehearse the amazing things and the less we rehearse the bracing for impact, the more we begin to expect the good. And over time, your brain starts updating on its own. Hello, Miss Kimberly. So the brain begins to understand, oh, I expect joy instead of I expect the hammer to drop, right? It's just a habit. So again, I'm here talking about this today because I want to help you get more awareness on what you're expecting. Do you expect to be successful? Like literally expect it. Is that expectation, when I do this, it will be successful? Do you expect to have good outcomes instead of bad outcomes? And if you're here live, put it in the comments. What are you actually expecting? And a way that you can take this a little bit further and learn more about yourself is by doing a stream of consciousness journaling on what am I expecting to happen? Because like I said, when the cells in your body go, you know what, this isn't us, which is why we have these fleeting moments of joy. And the cells in your body, they say, this isn't us. We need to signal the brain to have a thought that takes us back into the habitual state of bracing, the habitual state of anxiety. You can begin to understand that that is your expectancy pattern, and you can begin to change it. So once you notice this anxiety feeling in your moment, once you notice that you're predicting a future to be negative and that future hasn't even arrived yet, right? Once you become aware of that, you can interrupt it. You can say, you know what? I'm no longer going to predict a negative outcome. What if positive? What if this happens? What if I sell this thing, I do this thing, I launch this thing in my business, and it's amazing? If we can rehearse negative in our brain over and over and over, we can rehearse positive in our brain over and over and over. And over time, what you expect begins to change. And it begins to change to that constant, joyful state of being. It begins to change those thoughts of maybe something's inherently wrong with me. Maybe this isn't meant for me. Maybe I'm never going to change. I said to myself again and again, I don't think I'm ever going to do this. I don't think I'm ever going to build the business that I want to build. I said that to myself over and over. What was I expecting? That it would not happen. And it does take commitment because, like I said, what you're expecting is a habit. And so once you're aware of it happening, once you're aware that you are thinking the same thoughts that you had yesterday, and if you expect any sort of change to happen, that you have to change those thoughts, what you expect begins to be positive, but you have to be committed to it. Does this make sense? And I do want to really reinforce the fact that you need to choose to be good to yourself. And taking more of those moments so that you can experience more joy, so that your body can understand that this is the state of being that you are meant to be in most of the time, not fight or flight most of the time. And so I just want to take a second to talk about my amazing sponsor who really helps you take more of these moments. So Tendril and Thistle invites you to slow down just for a moment, which is so, so important, and reconnect with yourself. Each self-care invitation is a small act of restoration crafted with comforting, handcrafted, pure essential oil blends. They're so wonderful, and naturally derived ingredients to meet you right where you are. We can get more of what if positive when we are using Tendril and Thistle daily in our lives. It is just that beautiful thing that you can do for yourself to experience more joy. So whether you're beginning your day, pausing for a moment to take a real deep breath instead of these short, stagnant breaths that we have, tending to your body or unwinding into rest, these simple mindful moments remind you that care doesn't need to be elaborate to be meaningful. So you can go to tendrilandthistle.com/the invitations and use code MindBody10. I'm going to type it in right now. Use code MindBody10 for 10% off your next order. So what I want to know is if you're understanding the law of expectancy, if you're understanding how this actually, it's not posting, hold on, how this actually affects your life and it keeps your life on repeat, wouldn't we rather repeat joy than bracing for impact? So thank you so much for being here. I am trusting that this is an amazing way to start your week. It gives you sort of food for thought to understand how you are the one creating the outcomes in your life. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next week, Monday.